have some good news, and I have some not so good news. The good news is that we are vastly over-prepared for Mount Burke at the end of this month. The not so good news is we missed Mount Washington. There was a certain window for us to finish preparing the car. We had to leave here to go to Mount Washington for the rookie run at 2 o'clock on Thursday, and the car wasn't quite ready. And the second factor in that was that we had to get the car through tech by 8 p.m. So 3-hour drive to the hill. I could have gone up for the rookie run and then come back, but by that point, at least 6 hours, more likely 7 hours would have passed, and we would have missed our window for tech. So it was either miss the rookie run, which disqualifies us for the event, or miss tech inspection, which disqualifies us for the event. And either way, it wasn't coming together quickly enough. But on the plus side, we've pretty much finished the car now. It just needs an exhaust. And then it's back to being street legal daily driver. And we're all set to race at Mount Burke. I love Mount Burke. It's a gorgeous little hill. It's pretty steep though, so the Miata will be a little difficult. So most of our prep leading up to Burke is going to be on the box truck, the support vehicle, and basically getting the workshop back to working order. Most of the time when we're leading up to an event, I just kind of make a mess of the entire shop, and everything goes to shit. After every event, while I'm unpacking, I'm also kind of cleaning, maintaining tools, and today I'm going through my array of paddle angle grinders and rebuilding all of them. Some of them had stopped working, some of them had brush issues, and I had a couple of new ones that haven't been serviced at all. These are generally okay right out of the box, but I don't love the grease that they use on these. So first thing I do is rebuild them. And I'll walk you through the steps that I use now. So if you haven't used an angle grinder before, they're pretty simple devices. It's just like a corded drill, but it has a 90-degree angle on the end. And you'll generally use them for cutoff wheels, flap wheels, and grinding wheels. Occasionally you'll use them for wire wheels as well. But these are kind of my bread and butter for any kind of fabrication that I'm doing. These, if I could only have one metalworking tool, it would probably be a hammer. But my second tool would be at least one of these. The reason I have so many is I hate changing out the wheels on these. And I don't care for the grease that they use in these. It's almost like Cosmoline, which is more of a shipping and storing grease than a motor grease or a bearing grease. So there are essentially 3 sections to these angle grinders. There's the top section, which is pretty much just a 90-degree gearbox. Has an output shaft here. I'll show you a close-up in a minute, or I'll insert a close-up here. But it has a shaft that sticks out, and then it has a 90-degree geared linkage there at the end of the shaft. This piece is essentially just your geared linkage. So the motor spins this, that spins the output shaft, and it's pretty simple. My complaint is with the way that these lock up when you need to change wheels. This plastic piece is all that retains the spring, which is all that keeps this piece of steel from interfering while you're using the angle grinder. So if that slips down, totally possible if this piece of plastic breaks. If that slips down, that seizes up the angle grinder and breaks apart this entire assembly. So that's bad. That's really bad. I don't like this mechanism. It's broken off on several of the other grinders, and when it breaks off, it tends to break off some of the casting around it. I don't have a good solution for this yet, but I'm working on it. It seems like Harbor Freight's getting a little less controversial now. They have a few tools that are really good, and they have a few tools that are really bad, and pretty much everything else falls somewhere in between. I would say that this is one of their best tools. A lot of the construction in these is pretty good. There's actually a good tool teardown video that I'll link in the description. You might be wondering why I use coffee filters rather than shop rags or paper towels. And that's because the fibers in coffee filters are pretty tightly knit. They tend not to come off, and cotton fibers in any kind of a machine are pretty inflexible and they're pretty abrasive, so they can tear machines apart pretty quickly. Paper towels tend to just leave a fiber everywhere. So these are, again, reasonably cheap, reasonably easy, and readily available everywhere in the world. So I go through a lot of coffee filters. I just use general purpose, multi-purpose grease. I happen to have Valvoline. I don't have any brand loyalty here. I'm rebuilding a Harbor Freight tool. Pretty much anything is going to be better. If that retaining pin does break off on one of your grinders, it certainly doesn't ruin the tool. It doesn't take anything away. It just makes it a lot more difficult to change wheels from one to the next. And that's part of why I have so many of these. So I can just leave a cut-off wheel on 2 or 3 of these, and when one of those wheels gets worn out or it gets worn too far to be useful for a particular job, I generally have another one that's just ready to go. And at the end of any big project, I go through all of them and just use generally an Allen key to lock up the arbor. So that would just stick in this hole, and that would lock up. I've got grease on it now, but that would lock up against the anvil arbor. That would lock whatever this gear is called. So, with fresh grease in the top, I'm just going to reassemble it. But we're not done with servicing yet. This is just the top half. While we're going through this, I suppose I can cover my plans for the rest of the season. For right now, I need to wrap up the Miata, get an alignment, change out all the fluids, and just kind of finish the maintenance on it. And then it should be all set for the rest of the season, or the next 5 seasons. Really, that car is done. I'm not asking a whole lot of it. I just want it to be ready to race and to give me as much seat time as possible. I have no plans to add power or anything along those lines. It's all going to be minor modifications. That's not my primary project. As soon as that's ready, which should be this weekend, I think, once that's done, I can move on to the box truck, which is going to be the support vehicle, and that'll have all the spare parts, all the tools that we need to get through an event, and essentially all the logistical equipment. But as for plans for the year, once the box truck is finished, then I move back to the Datsun, which has seen a lot of progress since you last saw it. We spent a fair amount of time working on it. We've made a fair amount of mistakes, so we've screwed things up, but I think we've caught back up and then done more since then. It's almost ready to roll home. Okay, on the bottom, all I care about here are the brushes. This is what a brush looks like. It's a pretty simple little chunk of graphite with a spring on the back. So this is a good brush, and this one at an angle is a bad brush. I had a few of these on the other grinders that just came apart in pieces. And generally the symptoms that you'll see from something like that is you rotate the angle grinder in one specific way, rotate it vertical or on its left side or whatever you might be moving it to, and it just dies. It just cuts out. And I had that problem with quite a few of these. Luckily, these Harbor Freight grinders come with a spare set of brushes, and they just slip right in. As long as you haven't taken the actual motor, the rotating assembly, out of these, they should go back together pretty easily. You have one brush on each side. These are fine. I know I have to trust a new tool, at least to some degree, even if it did come from Harbor Freight. So I'm assuming the other side is just as fine as the first side, and if it's not, I wouldn't even be able to see it. Visual inspection doesn't tell you a whole lot. I won't know until after I've run it a few times. But that's pretty much all there is to getting one of these angle grinders up to snuff 100%. And I've had some of these for as long as 5 years, and I've only had one real failure. At least now you know why we don't have any race footage from Mount Washington or a follow-up video. You can expect more early next month, and let me know if you liked this kind of tech tip video. It's a totally new thing for me. This just happened to be convenient because I've had a lot of experience with these angle grinders, and I happen to be going through all of them. And I happen to have a couple of cameras just lying around. So if you'd like to see more, let me know what you would like to see specifically, or if you have any questions about how we've done things in the past. It's not always the right way, but I'm happy to explain why we did them the way that we did. And as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.